We have some breaking Philadelphia Eagles news on this Monday night as Eagles legend Brandon Graham is coming out of retirement to sign with Philadelphia. You're watching Eagles Now. My name is Chase Sr. Hope you're all enjoying your Monday night. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Anytime there's breaking news, I always have you covered right here on the show. And I have a couple of foundational elements that I always try to check off as far as boxes whenever I talk Eagles here on the program. I want the content to be informative, insightful, entertaining, thought-provoking. I want you to have a voice, and I think we always have a really good feel for what stories could come, and we get ahead of breaking news. So if you want to be a part of something special, be a part of a movement, lock us in, hit that subscribe button. An honor to talk about the Birds as a lifelong Eagles fan on the platform that we have. So we discussed this last week, talked about this yesterday, and then today, earlier this morning on the show, things were really starting to head in this direction, and it certainly moved quickly. But we had an indication that that could be the case because everybody who reported on this, from John Clark to Ian Rappaport to Jay Glazer, had said that Brandon Graham could end up signing with the Eagles as early as this week. He could be on the field as early as Sunday, Week 8, against the New York Giants. And Adam Schefter just tweeted this out after this really started to gather momentum, that according to sources, former Eagles standout Brandon Graham, the longest tenured player in franchise history, is finalizing a deal to rejoin the franchise this week. Graham played 15 years with the Eagles and now will return for his 16th year. Brandon Graham's been doing a podcast for PHLY. He's always been very media savvy, always very well spoken, obviously has that vivacious type of personality. One of my favorite Eagles of all time. If you're looking for an Eagles jersey to get, the number 55 is a no-brainer because that's one that you can wear forever and know that you're wearing a jersey for a player who played the game the right way, ultimate team leader, ultimate team captain, and defined what it was like to be an Eagle. And Brandon Graham, when I say he is an Eagles legend, I'm not saying it sarcastically like sometimes we do when we joke around in talking about Eagles legends on the show, like Quez Watkins or Carson Wentz, right? This for real is a legitimate, bona fide Eagles legend. What he's been able to accomplish, he's going to go down as one of the most accomplished Eagles in the history of football. He could stay retired and not play another game, and he still goes down as one of the most decorated players in franchise history. So special for the guy and the person he is, the teammate who he is, and the player that he is. And it's pretty crazy how his career started and how it was going early on. He was drafted in the first round out of Michigan all the way back in 2010. I think about that. That's the year that I graduated high school, Bayard Rustin in Westchester. A lot has happened for me personally, for all of you personally, for the world since the year 2010, right? And the Eagles take him in that first round out of Michigan. He had a pretty solid rookie year. Then he had some injuries. Then he struggled. The production wasn't necessarily there. And what was always hanging over his head, how the Eagles had drafted Earl Thomas out of Texas over Brandon Graham. Or how the Eagles had drafted Brandon Graham over Earl Thomas. And that was something that was hanging over BG's head. It was something that was hanging over the organization's head. Because while Brandon Graham kind of floundered to start his career and struggled, Earl Thomas became one of the best safeties of the decade, a part of that Legion of Boom defense, a pillar for the Seahawks, who made it to back-to-back Super Bowls and won one, and he was a terrific all-pro type of player. The Eagles got close to getting rid of Brandon Graham because of how ugly it kind of got early, but that calloused him, and he was able to persevere and push through that. And that's a big reason why his story is so special with fans, why it resonates with all of us, for him personally, with this Eagles organization. Because then over the long haul, once he started to find his groove, he then found his game, he then found his voice, he then found his Eagles captainship, and he's gone on to have a better long-term career than Earl Thomas, and is going down as a franchise icon and legend. He is one of 4 players in franchise history to win 2 Super Bowls with the Eagles, alongside Lane Johnson, Rick Lovato, and Jake Elliott. He is number 1 in franchise history in games played. He is 3rd all-time in sacks behind Reggie White and Trent Cole. And obviously, many of you know the story, right? He announced his retirement after the Eagles won their 2nd Super Bowl, the 2nd ring and Lombardi trophy that Brandon Graham has been a part of, and he announced his retirement with a flex. He had 1 Lombardi trophy to his left, 1 Lombardi trophy to his right. And obviously, he was walking off into the sunset on a high note. He tore his triceps in Week 12 against the Rams when he was balling out and dominating that game. Came back for the Super Bowl, got to play, injured his triceps again in that game, but he had accomplished everything that he set out to accomplish, but you did feel like he had a little bit of gas left in the tank. And with how him and Howie Roseman spoke and talked about his retirement, you kind of had an indication that maybe the Eagles pushed him in that direction, and I'm not sure if they felt that way because of how Jason Kelce and Fletcher Cox had to walk away on kind of a sour note with that wild card, ugly blowout loss to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, but you felt like BG had a little bit of gas left in the tank. And then during the offseason, you heard him talk a little bit about how he was staying in shape. I remember doing videos and YouTube shorts on that. I remember Vic Fangio on the field at Citizens Bank Park prior to a Phillies game saying, I was trying to tell him, man, you can't retire because you're still playing at a really high level. And when you are playing at a high level and you retire, or you're working in corporate America and you're excelling with your job and you walk away when you feel as though there's still some gas left in the tank, when there's still some meat left in the bone, when you have something to give, there is an empty, unsatisfied feeling with that you want to be able to come back and finish the job. And I imagine BG has felt that way a little bit. And prior to the Eagles signing Zadarius Smith, they were said to have reached out to BG because they wanted a veteran defensive end added to the team on a defensive line that lost to Josh Sweat, lost to Milton Williams. They needed to make up for that production, but it's also a very young and inexperienced defensive line room. So that's part of the reason why they signed Zadarius Smith, and they put his locker in a spot in the locker room where he could let his veteran voice be heard. And BG still has a locker available and open to him at the NovaCare complex. Jalen Hurts even said that after the game yesterday. He walked away. He's like, his locker will be ready. And just from a football standpoint, this is a move that the Eagles kind of needed to make by upgrading the edge spot. The Eagles' pass rush needs some help. Philadelphia is 28th in the NFL among 32 teams in sacks, with only 11 as a team. And you look at their sack breakdown. Moro Ajomo has 3 sacks, leads the team. Jordan Davis has 2. Zach Bond has 2. Zadarius Smith has 1.5. He retired. Patrick Johnson has 1. Josh Uche, 1 sack. Andrew Makuba, a half sack. Those are all the players currently on this Eagles team who have registered sacks this year. Their leading sack producer from the edge spot is Zadarius Smith. He retired. After that, it's Patrick Johnson, who's more of a practice squad fringe roster type preseason stud. But if he's leading your edge room in sacks, you've got a little bit of a problem. And the Eagles defense has played well at moments this year. They've bailed out this offense a lot. They've given up a lot of yards like they did yesterday against Minnesota. They held the Vikings to, 1 of 5, 1 of 6 in the red zone. They need to do a better job of getting to the quarterback. And Brandon Graham is going to help a little bit in that area. Is this the only move that I think the Eagles should make at edge? No. And if this is it, on top of Nolan Smith coming off of IR, I still don't think the edge room is good enough. If I'm Howie Roseman, I'm still making a trade. But BG should be able to help in the 15 to 20 snaps per game that he gets. Now, let me just real quick get to our sponsor, because our ad ops guy is saying, you got to plug Prize Picks. So let's plug Prize Picks, baby, because it is the best app for daily fantasy sports, and you have to sign up. It is easy to use. It's the #1 fantasy sports app in North America. Millions of users have signed up, so you got to hop on board. It's a no-brainer. It makes game day so much more fun. You can get your picks in less than 60 seconds. All you have to do is choose more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections, and you can win some big-time money. And right now, when you play your first $5 lineup, you get $50 instantly in lineups back. They also have a couple of new features. It's the only app that offers stacks, meaning you can pick the same player up to 3 times in the same lineup. You want to pick more on Josh Allen or Jalen Hurts' passing yards, rush yards, and touchdowns, for instance. Now you can pick all of them in the same lineup, only on PrizePicks. You can also follow other PrizePicks players directly on the app and copy their lineups in one click. Whether it's a friend, a celebrity partner, or just somebody whose picks you like, hit the follow button and check out every lineup they create in the new feed tab on PrizePicks. Download the PrizePicks app today. Use the code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks, it's good to be right. So, BG, if you're expecting him to play 100% of the snaps, not going to happen. You don't want that to happen at 37 years old, right? But again, he's going to be a rotational player, give you much needed depth at that spot and some good reps. Knows the scheme, is very smart, great leader, good against the run. He will help you in the meeting room and in the film room. He's going to obviously help you as a leader in the locker room. He's been a longtime Eagles captain, and he does bring an edge. He does bring physicality to this Eagles defense. He's also extremely tight with Jalen Hurts. And the quality depth at the pass rusher spot is something that the Eagles definitely needed. And look, we're not talking about a player who is washed. Last year, he played at a very high level. Obviously, there are concerns because he's now 37 years old. Father Time is undefeated, and he did tear his triceps twice, but he is staying in good shape. I imagine he slimmed down a little bit, probably going to have to put on some weight. But last year, he was very impressive with how he played in getting after the quarterback, helping to set the edge. He was also really good against the run. And the veteran element to this is certainly something of note. The Eagles clearly feel as though they needed to add a depth piece, they needed to add pass rush production, and they needed to add veteran leadership. And I've showed the PFF numbers a couple of times here on the show. I'll read these out again, but by no means was BG last year a slouch. He was a starting caliber defensive end who produced at a really high level. And he graded out very well, according to Pro Football Focus. He had an overall grade of 78.6, a run defense grade of 80.1, a pass rush grade of 71.9. Those all numbers in the green. He had 12 stops, 4 sacks, 13 hurries, 3 hits, 20 pressures, and PFF doesn't count for half sacks. He had 4 of them on 168 pass rushing snaps. It's pretty damn good. And then in the Super Bowl, had an overall grade of 72.2 and a pass rush grade of 69.6. He had a hurry and a pressure on Patrick Mahomes on 10 pass rush snaps. So if he can give you a semblance of that, gotta like the move. I'm happy for him. I hope that he stays healthy. I hope that, once he puts on that Eagles uniform again, he isn't completely cooked. I don't want to see him embarrass himself. I don't want to see his career end on a sour note. But honestly, I'm not worried about that now that I say that, right? Because he has accomplished everything that he's wanted to accomplish. And whatever he does this year, we're still going to remember BG as a guy who's #1 in franchise history in games played. Longest tenured Eagle of all time. 2-time Super Bowl champion. A Pro Bowler. A guy who I believe was a second-team All-Pro at one point in his career. And a guy who defined and exemplified what it's like, what it should be to be a Philadelphia Eagle. Who's a great person, teammate, and player. So my thoughts on that are not going to change. All right, thanks for watching the show. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Wanted to bring you this breaking news, the third video today. 2 other videos up on the channel. Be sure to check those out if you missed them. And I'll be back in the studio tomorrow.